everybody. We're at the Deanery Project, and we're going to talk today about how to fix a flat tire on your bike. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the flat tire off the bicycle. And there's a couple of things you need to know before you can get the wheel off. One is that your brakes are holding the wheel in place, so you're going to have to release the brakes. And these side pull brakes, this is my bicycle, and this is one of the ways you're going to need to release the brakes. So if this is not what your brakes look like, you're going to want to find out how to get the wheel off. So the first thing we need to do is we need to release the pieces at the side here, they've got like little locks on them. You're going to squeeze the brakes together, and there's usually a rubber covering over what we call the noodle, and then you're going to squeeze the brakes together and disengage them. That's going to make it easier to get the tire off. All right, so now the brakes are free of the wheel. We're going to come around. Most bikes now have a quick release. We are going to loosen the quick release, unscrew it a little bit. You have to hold both sides in order to do that, or the whole thing will spin. Loosen it off. There we go. Okay, so now we've brought our wheel over to the work table, and we're going to take the tire off. We're going to take out the inner tube, and we're going to see if we can find the flat. So first of all, you need a couple of items, very few items. You need a set of tire irons. They used to be made out of metal, now they're made out of plastic, which are little hooks that we're going to use to take the tire off. And you need a little patch kit, which you can buy for $2 or $3 at the local bike store or hardware store. So we're going to start opposite the valve stem, and you're going to take the curved part of your tire iron and insert it under the rim and catch the edge of the rubber of the tire. And when you get it up, you're going to hook it onto the nearest spoke. Take your next tire iron, and you're going to go over a couple of spokes, 2 or 3, and you're going to do exactly the same thing. So get your tire lever in there, pull it up, hook it. If you need to, you can put a third one in, but very often you don't need a third one. We're going to try this, and we're just going to pull the tire iron around the rim, and we're going to make sure that we don't catch the inner tube because we don't want to do any more damage than we already have. Okay? So you don't need to take the tire off completely, you just simply need to take one side of it off. And now what we're going to do is, we don't have any air in the inner tube, we're going to take the inner tube on the far side from the valve stem, because the valve stem is very easy to damage. And we're going to pull it out a little bit in each direction. All right, and then when we get around to the valve stem, we're very carefully going to pull this out. There we go. All right. So now we have our inner tube, and we're going to find out where it's got a puncture. And one of the things you can do before you even look at this is have a look at your tire and see if there's any obvious places where you have a nail, a piece of glass, or something else sticking through your tire. And we don't, so we're going to have to investigate further and see if we can find out where we've got a hole. So we've had a look at our inner tube, and we can't see an obvious hole, so we're going to use our pump, and we're going to put some air in the inner tube so that we can see if we can figure out where it's leaking. Okay. And obviously it's not a very big hole. Sometimes if you hold the inner tube up to your face, you can feel the air blowing out of it. And we've got a little tiny nick in the tube here, so we're going to repair it. We're going to take our little patch kit, and inside the patch kit there's usually a little piece of a metal scraper or a little piece of sandpaper, and what you want to do is rough up the rubber of the inner tube because you want the patch to stick to it. So we're going to rough up the inner tube, and then we are going to take a tube of the rubber cement that's in the kit, and we're going to put a very thin layer over the hole and around it. You don't need a lot, you just need a little tiny bit, and you need to spread it out very thinly all the way around the hole. And now we want that to dry. This is not glue, it's a preparation for the patch, so the patch will stick directly to the tire. So we want to make sure it's dry. Okay, and when that's dry, we're going to take out one of the small patches. Just tear off a patch that's big enough to go over the hole. And it has two pieces of adhesive. It has a transparent side and it has an aluminum side. You want to peel off the aluminum side and don't touch the patch because then it won't stick. So you want to keep your dirty hands off it. Now we're going to find the center of that hole, put the center of the patch on the hole, and then we're going to rub it. And there's no need to take that transparent shield off it. Some people try and peel it off, and very often what it does is it takes the patch back off the tire. So we're going to make sure that it's glued well. So now we've got the patch on, and now we're going to make sure that we've done a good job on it, so we're going to pump it up again and make sure it's not leaking. Okay, we don't have to put a lot of air in, but you want to make sure that there's no air escaping from around the new patch, which there isn't, so we're in good shape. And now what we need to do in order to get the inner tube back in the tire, we need to let some of the air back out. So you can use the little hooked end of your tire lever and just let most of the air out of it. Before we put the inner tube back in, what we want to do is see if there's anything obvious that was causing the flat tire. And an easy way to do this is to find where the valve stem goes through the rim, lay your inner tube over it, look where your patch was that you just put on, which is right here, and you will find that you might have something on this side, or if I didn't mark this, if I put it on the other way, there might be something on this side. So whatever was causing the problem is probably somewhere in here in the tire. Now, what you don't want to do is put your fingers inside the tire and run them around to find out what the culprit is. Because if it is a piece of glass or a sharp nail or something, you're going to do some nasty damage to your fingers. So what you want to do is very gently see if there's anything in there that you think might have caused the flat. And there doesn't seem to be. So we're not quite sure. It could have been something in the road that went in and came back out again. So we're safe to put the inner tube back in. And we're going to do it in reverse order to what we took it out. So we're going to put the valve in first. And you want to make sure that the valve stem is straight. Because if you put it in and it's on an angle, as you're riding the bike, you're going to break the valve stem, and then that's beyond repair. You're going to have to go and buy a new inner tube. Okay, so now we're going to gently stuff the inner tube back in the tire. It's better to work from the stem, from the valve stem out in both directions rather than going in one direction. And if you notice the inner tube is twisted, try and straighten it out as you go. Okay, we've got it in. So now we're going to put the tire back on, and we're going to be very careful when we're putting the tire back on the rim that we don't pinch the inner tube between the rim and the tire. So as you go, just make sure you're not pinching the inner tube in there. Okay. You can usually do this with older tires. You can push it on with your thumbs, but if it's a newer tire, sometimes you will need the tire levers to get it back on. So just use those in reverse. When you get to the very end, I like to lean across and just push the tire into place. So make sure that it's seated all the way around and on the other side, and the inner tube is not coming out. Get your pump. And if you're not sure the pressure that you want to put in your inner tube, if you look on the rim of the tire, it will tell you what the inflation is, pounds per square inch. This one says maximum recommended inflation pressure, 90 psi. So the maximum we want to put in this tire is 90 pounds per square inch. And most floor pumps like this will have a pressure gauge on it. So now you've got your wheel back on your bicycle. There are a few things that you should double check. One, when you're closing your quick release, you don't want it pointing forward in case it gets caught on something, even a bush sometimes, or a branch, or a piece of clothing, and it could release and your wheel could fall off your bike. So you want to make sure that it's pointing backwards or up the front fork. You want to make sure that all the pieces on your brakes that you disconnected are reconnected again, and give it a check and make sure that your brake is working. So we hope you've enjoyed this video today, and now you feel a little more comfortable fixing a flat tire from your bicycle. And we hope that you'll come back and join us for a few more Deanery videos.